Hi everyone, and welcome to this not podcast but a little video series that myself and Tom are doing, looking to interview various practitioners, coaches, sports psychologists, etc., around the psychology of performance. So today we have on Dave Hankey, who is a coach who I won't steal Dave's thunder. I'll give him a little chance to introduce himself in a second. So Tom, I don't know if you've got a few words to add to that.
Yeah, it's just speaking to people, getting real life stories, real examples from ranges of practitioners will be just really useful for everybody to sort of hear. And once we share it in the group, it'll be great to sort of get any feedback, and it stimulates debate and thought. And that's really what we're trying to do. So yeah, looking forward to this.
Yeah, so over to you, Dave. If you can just give us a little bit of a kind of synopsis about your coaching history, maybe your philosophy and how you form that during your experience.
Yeah, thanks, James. Tom, basically I've been coaching for a long time now, hence lots of grey hair. Started off in grassroots. Never really had any plans to go into coaching. Got dragged into it when my son started playing, and I was very lucky in that the guy that actually got me involved initially in coaching was already an academy coach himself, working at Crewe. So I had a good grounding, if you like, to start off with in how to coach, if you like, and just got bit, really enjoyed it. Decided it was a lot better than the job I was doing, and I was going to make it a retirement plan, because basically you can coach till you drop. And from that point, my journey basically, I went from grassroots. My first involvement with a professional club was with Bolton Wanderers, which I was very lucky that they had a fantastic education program there. At the time, they were still delivering the B licenses. I think Jack Trainer was heading up their education program, and I think he now does Manchester Uni's coach education program. So as I say, I was lucky that the people I was working with at Bolton, Sam Allardyce was still there. So he was heavy on the sports science. So I got a really good grounding with the full holistic approach really to coaching through there. Was lucky enough that I was working with the international department, which meant I worked in various different countries around the world, Colombia, America, Canada, Egypt, Spain, with a lot of very good, high quality coaches, if you like. So again, very lucky to have continued my learning and development with a lot of good people, and the experience from working abroad with various different players and different age kids, different, girls and boys, to be honest with you. It gives you such a great volume of experience and the various differences. I mean, Colombia is one of the places where I put down as one of my favourite places to have coached. Their enthusiasm, their desire out there is just incredible. Their love for the game is fantastic. When we talk about people that love the game in South America, they really love the game, but they love the skills, the technical, the ball mastery. They absolutely love the ball. From Bolton, I ended up in the academy system at Accrington Stanley, where I spent a number of years. And obviously, I know we discussed a little bit before, I had the pleasure of working with Willie Donaghy. Willie, absolutely fantastic. Again, very big on ball manipulation. The tactical side of the game is completely irrelevant if you can't control, manipulate, move the ball. But Willie was also very big on I suppose it was a dip into the sight side of the game with mindfulness, which again, I'm very open-minded to new and learning, and if somebody's got something that's going to work well, I'll give it a go. I'll give it a try. And Willie's mindfulness was really good. And again, privileged and lucky to work with a guy who basically has been involved in the game to the very highest level. Learned a lot from Willie. From there, I then moved on a little closer to home for me. I went to Bury. Really, I'll be honest, I could have just as easily stayed at Accrington. But Bury was close to home for me. They were paying a little more, and their facilities were better at the time. Didn't quite work out that way with what happened at Bury historically, but that's obviously where I first met you, James. And it was my second look at psychology where I was involved more on a more personal basis. We'd done it at Accrington, but that was the whole academy all together in a hall, if you like, an auditorium, where years later, sort of thinking back to that, obviously me and James have discussed it, I realised that for me, I think a lot of psychologists leave it too late to get involved. I think the younger we start delving into the psych tools with the kids, the better. At Bury, we had more of a coach sort of, well, because I take an interest in the area, I went into the classroom with the kids when they were having their psychology lessons. So rather than taking the whole academy at Bury, they sent them team by team into a classroom with a sports psychologist. While she had some really good information, delivery probably wasn't the best, and the boys weren't buying in, which was kind of disappointing for me, because obviously I do put a lot of stock in it. I think it is very important, and I did help her out as much as I could. Then, obviously, like we say, Bury came to a crashing end, and I ended up at Oldham Athletic, where I spent 4 years leading the foundation, where I actually had the chance to develop the programme. And one of the things I was most proud of with the what we did at Oldham was the last 2 years, where we managed to develop a psychological programme for the 9s to 12s that ran alongside the training programme. And we always kind of tried to make sure that goal setting was delivered just before the kids went in for their Christmas meetings, which is part of EPPP. They have to have these development meetings. And the goal setting was done before that, so that when they went into those meetings at Christmas, the kids were very much ready to set their own goals. For me, it's obviously James calls it psychology. For me, I always called it attitude. If a kid's attitude isn't right, then you're barking up the wrong tree. You're flogging a dead horse, as it were. But obviously that attitude is the psych corner. If a kid recognises for themselves where they need to develop, if they can recognise for themselves where they need to improve, then your whole edge to them learning, improving, and pushing on is gold dust once they can actually effectively review themselves, which is, again, that psych corner. Being able to effectively review yourself without killing yourself, if you like. But yeah, from there, I've obviously started up my own soccer coaching academy with Anthony Kay, which we have between 60 and 90 kids coming on a Monday evening. And that is purely to just develop the kids. We don't run a games program. We don't have teams. We'll do the odd showcase games for certain age groups, but we stay away from the teams. We let them go and play in their own teams. And the idea is just to give them a training session where they are fully comfortable in. This is where you try anything you want. It's not kick it away. It's not about winning or losing. It's about you trying to develop and you trying to improve, which that's been running for almost 12 months now, and it's going quite well.
Yeah, so I know we've had this conversation quite a few times. You mentioned there about the autonomy thing, Dave, and
yeah,
there's a saying that a good teacher or a good coach should ultimately try to make themselves redundant. So where have you come up with that? And obviously through your experience, was there something that was a particular spark that you thought, this is a...
I mean, I don't know where it first came from, and I think it's just something that I've always done, giving players ownership. I've been lucky to work with some fantastic players over the years. One of my son's good friends is, he was last year Burnley's captain, Josh Brownhill. And as a group of 12-year-old boys, they wanted to take part in the local Birchwood tournament. Just as mates, they played together at school. They weren't in a team together. It was a summer tournament. It was on the doorstep, and basically, I got pestered to be their coach. So, because I was helping out with the tournament anyway, because that had been the grassroots club that started me on my way, I said, all right, but I'm not, you've all got to cough up the entrance fee and you've got to sort yourselves out and make sure everything's organised. I'll get you this, that and the other. So rather than me doing things for them, I just kind of aided them to do for themselves. And at the halfway point of the first game, they sort of come off and then look at me. What are you looking at me for? You got 2 goals and then forgot to defend, so you've conceded 2 goals. And basically, well, aren't you going to tell us what to do? I went, no, you're here because you want to be here. You guys sort yourselves out. You need someone at the back, someone in the middle, someone at the front, and make sure you don't forget to defend. There's 2 sides to the game. I said, but you get on with it, sort yourselves out. And all I did was just kind of be there to help them do what they wanted to do, which was play in that tournament. Anyway, at the time, Josh obviously was already in the academy with Manchester United and was obviously further on than the boys, but he just basically kind of, oh, right, I can do this. Cool. And he took control of the whole thing. And he basically ran the team with a little bit of guidance and help from me right through to the penultimate part of the tournament where the trophy's up on a shelf behind me. Now, did I help him develop his leadership skills to later on become captain of Burnley? Who knows? But that was always just something that I did with my coaching. It's not my journey, it's yours. I'm here to help you be the best you can be.
Well, I think you've given him the opportunity to do that, Dave. You haven't been like a PlayStation control kind of coach, and it's all about you. You've let them go and kind of
that's always been my. I always say one of the biggest issues I have is not developing myself, because I always put developing the others first. But I don't think it's a bad trait. It is about them. They're the performer, and I'm there to basically, if you want the terminology, it's obviously put the scaffold around them to help them not fall, or at least not fall too far. Because how can we say that you learn from failure if we don't allow you to actually fail sometimes? You know, we go on about protecting this and protecting that, but inevitably, at some point in some walk of life, you are going to fail, and you need to learn to deal with that failure. So the scaffolding can be there to help them, but you still have to let them fail to some degree. But yeah, I think that player ownership has always been a big part of everything I've done. Whenever Josh came to our sessions, because I knew who he was, in all fairness, I stole from him. I went, go on then, Josh, show us what you're doing at United. So, I mean, another one, I kind of read that in a rugby league book, the late Mike Gregory, obviously sadly passed away with motor neurone, and he had a fight with Wigan to retain his job while he was suffering with it. And he writes in his book, a quote again that absolutely I loved, was, all the best coaches are thieves. Nothing's really very new. We all just have either played it, learned it, done it with another coach, put our own spin on it, seen it somewhere, we steal from one another and just suit it to the group. And I think that to me is the art of coaching. It's what suits the group, how does the group react, and then building from what you see.
Yeah, I think that's it's really important you mentioned about how you kind of developing independence and autonomy, and you know, millennials and Gen Z get a bad rep for not being able to do that, but that's not their fault. That's the adults.
Yeah,
the adults aren't giving them that opportunity to do it. So yeah, I think that's it's great how you've actually letting that happen. Yeah,
it's something I've always done. As I say, we talk about making yourself redundant as the coach, and we've had the discussion about that squad I had at Bury. And I think Charlie Hall is first team at Accrington now. I think Anjola's on the verge of first team at Accrington there. Sam, he was my left back. He's actually first team at Bolton Wanderers. Ben is on Port Vale's book, first team. That group of players, Dean is a third year scholar or first year pro at Stoke. That group of players, we were told when we were given them, were the worst group in the academy.
Yeah, I was coaching the year above and was told similar things. So it's mad how you got.
They were a legend. We obviously had Brandon Lai. I think he's at Burnley now. We're told they're the worst group in the academy, and I'm like, oh right, okay. Well, I'm not gonna take on anything other than I'll coach what I see and I'll work with what you've given me, and you know, we'll see where we end up. And they ended up, I don't think we lost more than 2 or 3 games all season. I think if Dean Adekoya had scored a couple of the chances he had at Liverpool would have signed him. They ended up signing Teddy out of that game. So there's a few players in the group did really well, but the bit that I was most proud of, there's 2 occasions with that group that we coached. Obviously, I had Anthony Kay at the time starting his coaching journey, working with me at the time, and he was still playing professionally at Port Vale. So he did the Tuesday, Thursday sessions with me. The Saturday sessions I did on my own. And then Sunday, obviously, we were together for games. But we played Blackpool away one Sunday. And in the final sort of 2 quarters of the game, we absolutely destroyed them. Absolutely tore them apart. And the coaches at the end came over, as they do, the academy. They shook our hands and went, "Do you know what? You've just schooled us there today." And I didn't have the heart to tell them, well, actually, we didn't. The kids did it. Because the boys, we were only allowed to play 2 formations at Bury. We either played 3-5-2 or 4-3-3. And the group that we probably had half a season with them. And we developed the leaders within the group and given them chance to talk, given them chance to lead. And we're playing this Blackpool team that have decided that must have been their syllabus that week. They were going to play in a mid-block. So whenever they lost the ball, they retreated into their own half. So our boys had basically been playing 3-5-2 and very much enjoying success that way. But the shape didn't suit the game when Blackpool dropped off. So I've always very much, when the players come off the pitch, let the players speak first. What are you seeing? What are you doing? What I'll do is I'll rotate the players based on, right, we need everyone to get 50% playtime. So they know that I'm not changing players based on, you're not playing well enough, you're coming off. It's based on rotations of everyone getting plenty of minutes. So basically, they know the changes that are going to happen. But they said, we think we need to change the shape. I said, go on, why? And they explained why they thought they needed to change the shape, why they thought 4-3-3 would be better against this low block, and why they thought they'd have more success. So I just looked at Casey. Casey was like, it was everything we talked about during the period that we thought would be better for the lads as a team to go and have success in the game. The players told us. So we didn't need to say anything. So I said, go on then, go and do it. And the rest is history.
Yeah, I've got a question. I've got a question on that. I think it's a brilliant story and brilliant examples you're giving. But we all know quite often in academy settings and the traditional notions of coaching is coach demonstrates, shows, tells, teaches, players, repeat it and show you it back, and the coach goes, "Great, nice one." But you've flipped that and said, "Right, what do you think?" Now, how did you receive any sort of challenge to that in the academy? It's a bit different, isn't it?
Not really, no. I still followed the club syllabus.
Yeah.
I stuck with the club's ethos and the playing shapes. And that was just my coaching style, which was never going to change. I'm always going to be listening to the players first. Obviously, there's a lot of building blocks to get to the point where the players can give me the information that I know I want. But it's guided discovery, isn't it? And obviously, you used the word there, flipped. That was something I introduced to the syllabus at Oldham, where we had a flipped training week, where basically the players took over. And the hardest part of letting the players take over the sessions were the coaches letting go of the joystick. And I think it's that. I think it's an inner need to feel like you're there for a reason.
Yeah.
Justifying yourself. Well, I'm justifying myself because I'm going to make this comment. Well, you don't need to, because the players have just done it for you. And my little favourite little saying, and I put it on the syllabus, was, I've forgotten everything I was taught, but I remember everything I've learned. So if they're giving you the information and they've learned from what you've been doing earlier, what they could do that in that game against Blackpool came about because of the work we'd put in previously, from the discussions we'd had, the tactical talks, the information that Anthony gave them, the information that I'd given them. They decided, well, do you know what? We think this will actually work. I guess also because they knew there was trust that they could say something, even if it was wrong. It wouldn't be, don't be stupid. You can't say, no, that's not going to work. This is what you're going to do. It would be a discussion. It would be, oh, well, all right, yeah, do you know what? Let's give it a try. And then if it doesn't work, well, we've learned that doesn't work. And again, as I say, it's all right me telling you that's not going to work and you're going to do this instead. But you go away and do what I've said instead. In your head, you still think, well, what I thought might have worked. So allowing someone to go and fail at what they think, and then, all right, okay, that didn't work. What do we do next? And knowing that they're safe in being able to fail and have a go. That's what we talk about, creating the environment, isn't it? You
Yeah,
know,
that's fantastic. That how did you go about? 'Cause I think that's brilliant. Allowing them to fail, helping them do that, building that trust, having a good relationship with your players is really foundational. How did you go about like building that, and what did that sort of look like? What things did you
I
do to
think
make people think, I can have my own opinion?
I think the biggest part is just listen. I do say sometimes you work with a group, and the older they get, because of their mates around them, they're worried about saying things because the mates are going to be bothered about it. But I think once you actually, sometimes it is like pulling teeth, but once you actually start to get the information from them, say, no, listen, I want to know what you know. I can't help you unless I know where you're at. And if you don't tell me what you think and don't tell me what you know, then I can't help you further. Uh, and then listening. And I think that's the biggest thing. It's listening to the kids and what they're saying and going, all right, okay. Well, what if? And what about? And maybe giving them something else to think about. But because you've had that conversation, because you've listened, because you're paying attention, then they're more open to talk more. And like I say, it's not you can't do it in one session. It takes time.
Mm,
Um, we probably started in, what would we have started in September? September would be the start of the season, so we'd have been probably pre-season August. I think we did testing in July, so July, August, September, October, November. So I'd say it took 6 months with that group when we played a game. I think me and James have discussed this again about making myself redundant. I think I had 11 players turn up for a game. It was a Friday night in Accrington. It was absolutely bouncing it down. And basically, it was a showcase game for the team we were playing. So my brief in reality was to watch the opposition and see if any of the lads in the opposition who had allegedly been in academies, dropped out for one thing or another or other reasons, whether any of them were good enough to bring into our group. So I just took the approach on the Friday night of, right, well, this is the situation, fellas. You're playing this team tonight for them to see if they can take your place. These lads all want to have your place in the academy. So really, I'm here watching them. So what system do you want to play tonight? We'll go with the 3-5-2. Right, okay. What if that's not working? Well, then we'll switch to 4-3-3. So right, so if you start 3-5-2, who's playing where? And there's 3 or 4 voices basically in the changing room, the leaders in the group who select the team. The 2 main ones, which Ali, who's coming through at Accrington, and Matty Senior as centre half, basically said who was going to play in what positions in the 3-5-2. I said, right, okay, what have you switched to 4-3-3? And just like that, they rearranged themselves. And all the lads were like, yeah, I'll go and do that. Yeah, I'll cover this. Yeah, no, I'll do that. And basically, I'm just sat there like, well, all right, go on, off you go. I'll watch the opposition and let you know if any of them are good enough. And again, they went out that night and they won that game quite comfortably. There were 1 or 2 players in the opposition that we got in for a trial to have a look at, but I didn't have to do anything for the boys that night. They could do it themselves, and I think that's a big achievement with the group. Knowing you can trust your group to organise themselves and go and do. Because if you're standing on a touchline and the game's going on, a lot of the time, if you want to shout instructions, they're not going to get them. And a big one for me is, and I think I learned it all the way back at Bolton, don't shout while the ball's in play. Don't give a player instructions while the ball's in play. Because when that player looks at you for those instructions, the ball's moving. So the instruction you've given, when he looks back to where the ball is and where the players are on the pitch, they've probably all changed. And the instruction you've just given is probably wrong because it's all changed. Everything's moved on. So only ever coach players and shout instructions to players when the ball's out of play. So a lot of people are like, oh, you're awfully quiet on the touchline. We're like, well, I'm in academy football. We play 4 periods. I get 3 chances to have a real good conversation with the lads and tell them what they need to do. When they're actually playing, I've worked with them in 3 training sessions this week. When they're playing in that game's for them to show me what they've learnt this week and have they improved. So
Yeah.
shouting instructions on a match day is not. I'm not big. Support, yes. Instructions, not so much.
Yeah, brilliant.
Fantastic.
So
Go on, James.
you kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier on. If you could tell us a bit more, and that's great, the stuff you've done on the pitch is the ultimate kind of aim, isn't it, really, with psychosocial stuff. But if you could maybe tell us a little bit more about what you did in the classroom, perhaps the work you did with Alex and other sort of sports psychs. I know that kind of came about not by accident, but it kind of got accelerated a little bit during lockdown, didn't it? In the sessions.
Yeah, it did. Obviously, a big part of it is down to yourself, James, and the work that me and you've done together over the years. And obviously, the franking player started it all. And we built off the franking player of, okay, so you've built your franking player. How are you going to go and be that player? And from that, we built a full site program. Again, accidentally, really, we had shall we say, a lead phase coach who the psychologist wanted to work with, but the lead phase coach had his own idea about grit and having a grit thing going on. He was there to work with the youth players, but the youth phase coach at the time he was just about trying to win games for the youth phase and get the first team job. So he wasn't working with him because he might upset the apple cart there. And basically, we sat in our office one afternoon. I come in and he was sat there. Jake, the guy was called, a little bit like, "What you actually doing, Jake?" He went, "Well, I'm supposed to be doing this, and I'm supposed to be doing that." Right, okay. Well, I tell you what. What's your biggest challenge with this? He said, "Well, my biggest challenge is getting what I do as a psychologist and the psychology I've got through the coaches onto the grass." I said, right. I said, well, I'll tell you what, I'm a coach. And I think you psychologists are all working at the wrong age because way back to the Accrington Auditorium, what triggered him with me was the fact that none of the answers to the psychologist on stage came from the back row where the under 16s were, or where the 13s were. The 13s, 14s, 15s, and 16s, they were like all sat there like, yeah,
awkward.
Not interested. No, this is nothing to do with me. This is all gibberish. Yeah. When can we go out on the pitch and play? Not into this at all. And all the answers were coming from the 9s, 10s, 11s, and 12s. Everything this psychologist was talking about, they were eating it up like food and drink, and they were coming back with answers and they were interacting. So it's always been in the back of my mind that these psychologists are starting at the wrong age. So I said to Jake, I said, tell you what, I said, I think this. And we're missing a trick with not getting a site program for the younger players. So you help me build a site program for the younger players, and I'll help you as a coach tell you what I think would get through to a coach and get onto the grass, as opposed to me going, are you having a laugh? No, we're not doing that. And that was a psychologist that was working at Blackburn, where she spoke at an event about basically players building parachutes for eggs and throwing them up in the air. Now, that's wonderful. And some are going to fail and some might succeed and some will take leadership over the design and the build and you'll get to see lots of things. But to a coach, what's that got to do with me getting them on the pitch and learning how to move a football? You know, you've got to have a coach that's very much open-minded and already into psychology to buy into letting his players make parachutes. It's not happening. So as a psychologist, if that's the first thing you come in the door with, you're probably not going to get a buy-in from the coaching staff. You're on a sticky wicket there straight away. So basically the idea was I helped Jake with what of his ideas would get through to coaches, and he helps me build a program. So we basically built a program from the franking player, as I was saying earlier, to doing stuff about goal setting, so that goal setting lined up and tied in with the kids at Christmas, then setting their ILPs, individual learning plans, so the kids had an understanding of goal setting when they were setting these ILPs, because the ILPs, whatever you want to call them, PDPs, ILPs, development plan, whatever you want to call them, it's a goal. They're setting goals for themselves. That's the basic of what it is. I want to get to this level at this point in time. So we did a full program that started with the franking player, went into motivation and what motivation was and what it looked like and how different people were motivated. Then into goal setting. And once we'd come back after the new year, we then built on that with positive self-talk and visualization to the point where we were giving them homework. The franking player, obviously, they had to produce a franking player, and some of the players were brilliant. The second year we did it, I said the coaches were going to have to do it. And getting the coaches in the room with the parents in the room as well was important for me, to get buy-in from them as well. And the visualization, we had there's a brilliant video of Robert Lewandowski, and I think the delivery of that was really important. And I helped Jake with a lot of the delivery as well, so that Jake was going to get a little bit of buy-in because he had me by his side, buying into it, if you like, more so probably with the parents than anything, because I wanted the parents to encourage the kids to do more of it. But the Robert Lewandowski video I thought was brilliant, where we asked them some questions about visualization before the video. Then we showed them the video, the Lewandowski, where the stadium gets built and everything. It's a fantastic video to use for visualization. And then we asked them questions again after we'd shown them the video. And obviously the extra feedback that came back from the players, the extra information was brilliant. And then we asked them to go away and write their own visualization strips, their own, oh, what did Jake call it now? Basically their own film strip, how they see what they're going to do well in a game. And the work that came back from it was, as I say, it was brilliant. So Alex then jumped on the second year, because obviously me helping Jake must have worked because he got a job in a club somewhere full time. So obviously I must have done some good for Jake as well. Like I say, him and I delivered all the sessions, because I think parental buy-in is important. So whether we did nutrition, psychology, whatever, the parents were in the classroom, and I always encouraged after the kids went out onto the field, if the parents had any questions, that they could then ask them, because obviously they might feel a bit daft asking in front of the kids sometimes. But getting the parent on side with developing kids is massively important. They have to have an understanding of what you're trying to do, how you're trying to do it. But then Alex, what Jake did was probably a bit heavy and a bit wordy for the younger kids. So then Alex again dressed it up a little more and kind of just made it less word heavy, and simplified it a little more for the 9s to 10s, which was good. And Alex brought in the brilliant acronym of ANTS. We all have ANTS, automatic negative thoughts. And what do we do with ants? We squash them. And he used a bit more imagery. So we had the ant being fly sprayed or whatever, to destroy those ants, those automatic negative thoughts. And then obviously your examples for positive self-talk. My favourite one being the Ali prayer.
I think those are brilliant examples to share for, the coaches that are listening and the psychs that are listening. And I think what I'm taking from that, and just correct me if I'm wrong, Dave, is like, if you're a psych going into a club, your practice has got to be relatable to coaches.
Yeah, I think you can't go straight into the deep and meaningful. You need to go in first with stuff that the coaches can easily understand, that they see as beneficial to them. The visualization, because I encouraged the coaches to come in, one that probably wasn't massively into the psych side, suddenly realised, oh, that was what Wayne Rooney was doing at Man United. Now, because he worked at United, you'd heard a story about Wayne Rooney always asking the kit man what kit they were going to be wearing that weekend, because United obviously always had that different combination between black shorts, white socks, or white socks and black shorts. He always wanted to know what kit they were in. He said that must have been so that he could do his visualization. So I think, again, that little bit on visualization got that coach a bigger buy into psychology and to the psych corner, because, oh, hang on, Wayne Rooney's using it. And obviously, I think I've commented somewhere about, we just recently seen Lewis Skelly with his mum talking about manifestation, which again, it's a version of imagery, positive self-talk. And basically, what's the difference between your brain, seeing it in your brain and going and doing it? Well, to your brain, there isn't a difference. As far as your brain's concerned, you've just gone and done it. So Yeah, I think it's important when a psychologist goes in, firstly, like I say, to go in with stuff that coaches are going to buy into, that
Yeah.
coaches see. When I think, who is it, put something on LinkedIn yesterday? You'll probably like this one, James. Instead of technical, tactical,
Dan
physical,
Abrams, wasn't it?
psychosocial, yeah, the biopsychosocial. Because the
Mm.
way he
Yeah.
describes the biopsychosocial, I think that gets a buy-in from coaches, because he's kind of
Yeah,
shown the areas where they cross over
yeah.
and
I think,
how a
I
coach
think,
can affect it.
yeah, I think as well, like these psych techniques are great for coaches. Like visualization is great for like rehearsing your how your session's going to go and what might go wrong and things like that. And
Yeah, putting your game face on.
self-talk, yeah, and relaxation techniques, all these different things are good for coaches. So some really great content there, Dave, and both from how that's adapted for the classroom and the pitch. So I think my last question to you would be, and you've kind of alluded to it already, is how do you, obviously coaches need to be open-minded, psychs need to have a little bit more wherewithal, I think, of kind of the politics and what goes on in terms of the club. So what would you, what if you had 2 or 3 recommendations to try and improve that working so everyone's not just working in silos and not talking to each other? 2 or 3 recommendations you might come up with.
Well, like I say, I think the first thing is a lot of these sites, they want to come into the club and they only want to work with the first team or the youth team. Well, I'm sorry, but there's going to be a lot of stuff there that's set in stone. There's going to be a lot of stuff that's been at the club for this long and that long, and you might not be able to squeeze in what you want to squeeze in there because they might feel they've already touched on some of the psychological stuff. I think you need to go in with a full whole club approach, and I think you need to start at the bottom. And I think when you can start to show that, well, we can affect these kids right throughout their journey, as opposed to trying to come in and fix something when they're youth players. I think then you possibly, with your more senior staff, I think then you're getting more of a buy-in, because I think within the football hierarchy, a lot of people will have worked really hard to get to the point where they're coaching the youth team. Being a PDP coach is it's a gold dust position. And in order to get there, you've done a lot to get there and earn that position. So to have a psychologist come in who's basically, in a lot of cases, is a student psychologist. They're not even a full-on proper psychologist at this point. They're a student still doing a dissertation, and they want to work with your youth players at the most
Yeah,
important part of their life. They want to
earning your
work with
stripes,
youth
mate.
players who are looking to get pro contracts, but you don't want to work with the 9-year-olds and the 12-year-olds. And for me, the 12-year-olds, I think the 9-year-olds and the 12-year-olds are probably the most important ones to be working with, because at 9 they're just starting the journey, and it's maybe helping them have an understanding of, how to cope with what they're about to get themselves involved with. They're going to go from one game a week, maybe two, depending on parents, but one training session a week, one game a week, to 3 training sessions a week, possibly 2 games a week, depending on what fixtures you've got involved, but a big commitment to a full education program. Under 12s, well, let's be honest, what they've got going on in their lives, they definitely need a psychologist on board to help them through it. I mean, I even obviously have a little story on that one, to be fair, as well. Working with the under 12s at Oldham pre-season, and because obviously pre-season, some of the coaches are still on holiday. So as a full-time phase lead, you work with all the teams that need a coach at the time. And I know all these 12s really well. They've been with the club 3-4 years, and we've had 2 or 3 absolutely brilliant sessions. And then they come in this particular Tuesday night, and they are a million miles off it. Million miles off it. And I'm thinking to myself, what's going on here? Is this me? Have I done something? As a bomb dropped somewhere? What's going on? And then the penny dropped. Oh, these boys have just started high school.
Yeah, big transition.
Some of them have gone in today. Some of them might be due in tomorrow. Some of them might be due in Thursday. This is a big week for these boys. So I stopped the session, sat them all down. I went, right, come on, who started school already? And we had a chat about going to high school, what they were going to face, who's worried, what they were worried about. Again, just opened opened up to have a listen and help where possible, and then said, right, okay, so we know that's why your session's been as it is to begin with. Well, all I'm going to say now, boys, is listen, we've got a bit off our chest, and where we can help, we will help you. We always will. That's what we're here for. But tonight, let's just now go and have a bit of a kickabout and a game of football to finish this session and enjoy yourself and forget about everything else. You're just going to play football now. And basically, we just set up a pitch and had a game. And the standard of the session went through the roof because it was just a game. But I think it also went back up because we'd had that conversation about what they were going through. And for me, anyone that sees themselves as wanting to be in a sports psychologist in the development area or developing athletes, that age group for me is probably the most important one. I don't think there's a point in a child's life where they're going through more. And then we did that brilliant program during lockdown, James, that was delivered online for the under 15s, because again, they were at that crossroads in whether they were going to go to college or jobs and all the rest of it. Obviously, they were coming up to the 16s where they were going to be getting decisions made. I can't remember what it was called now. Was it delivered by Mindflick or someone?
John, someone won it. It was, I remember. It was a really good program.
It was a brilliant program. And I mean, obviously, for the rights and wrongs of the guy running the program at Oldham at the time, for whatever reason, we never actually delivered it again. Which was a shame because that was a brilliant program for the 15s. But I think that's where psychologists going into clubs need to be more thoughtful of who needs your help the most and how can you get the biggest buy-in. What can I do that gets me a buy-in with the coach, and which players need my help the most? Yes, the youth team players will need your help because they're looking for pro contracts. They're going to get retained or released. Your 12s need it because of what they're going through. The 15s probably need it, but your 9s need it as well. And I think if you go in with an attitude of we're happy to work with the lot, then you're probably going to get more of a buy-in in that office of full-time staff rather than isolating yourself to just the PDP.
Yeah, and I think the other question then is how would you compete at Cat 3 without the kind of resources and time that you might get a Cat 1? It can be done.
Yeah, it can. Listen, the development centre was a big part of it. I mean, I could drop a lot of bombs on Oldham really in some of the areas, because we kind of failed to make the most of certain things. And hopefully, if they get the Cat 3 back this year, a lot of those things will get built back and better. The development centre I thought was a brilliant addition, where you're preparing players for academy football. Or if you've got a player in academy football that's struggling, and you can drop him back down into the development centre, have some success at a lower level, to then maybe come back. That was, I think, for a Cat 3 to have a development centre is really important. The Cat 1s don't need it. United had the emerging talent, which I think they've gone away from now. I think they've got rid of it. And City have their Select programme. Well, the City Select programme is just about winning games. And farming players and keeping players that would probably develop better in a Cat 3 because they'd be in a proper full-on academy program. And let's be honest, the way the EPPP is supposed to work, I know we get hung up sometimes about the finances involved. For me, there are two sides to it. If a player is doing well enough in a Cat 3, a Cat 1 is going to buy him. They're going to take him out of your system.
Yeah.
Now, they're not buying him off you. They're compensating you for the work that you've done with the player. That's the official line on it. They're not buying him because you don't pay to be an academy player. You're funded. So Oldham fund a player for 4 years. For Man United just to come and take him for nothing would be completely unfair. So you have this compensation in place. Now, for me, where it protects the player is we see players in grassroots getting plucked out by scouts who take a punt. Do you know what? I've seen him once do all right. I think he's half a chance. Let's send him in. The kid fails miserably, gets released from that Cat 1 academy, and he's devastated. He might not come back to football again. I had it with a boy I seen at grassroots that was released from Crewe. He didn't play football for another 3 years. He didn't come back to the game for 3 years. The kid was brilliant. He was a fantastic player. One of the best young boys I coached. But because of that disappointment, he was lost to the game for 3 years. So where the compensation comes in, Man United won't come and send a scout to Oldham, look at a player once and go, yeah, we'll take a punt on him, because we're paying 25 grand, or we're paying 3 grand, or we're paying 6 grand, depending on how long they've been with us. So now they'll send 3 different scouts. All 3 scouts will watch at least 3 games and do thorough reports on the player before the club will go, do you know what? He could be a Cat 1 player. We're going to bring him to us. We'll give you the compensation. We're going to bring him up the levels. So you have a player now who's got more chance of succeeding, rather than what we have from grassroots, where anyone can take him, have a punt, send a player in, and not worry about the consequences, because scouts don't deal with the consequences.
Yeah,
I think complain a lot that they maybe not listen to, but they don't deal with the consequences of their actions. The academy coaching staff are left to deal with that.
Yeah, I think we're verging into the talent ID stuff there. I think we've both seen that done brilliantly, and we've seen it done really badly.
Yeah.
But again, I think, I'm sure Tom will agree with this, we maybe don't take into account the psychosocial enough when we're recruiting.
Definitely not.
I mean, I sense it's more sort of physical first that makes you stand out, whether you're more athletic, whether you're more agile, whether you're quicker, then the technical, and psych's way down the list. I think that's my sense.
I mean, as I say, it's always been a big one for me. And as I say, I've not called it maybe psych, I've called it attitude.
Yeah.
Because if a player's attitude, he already knows it all, he already thinks he's this, that, and the other, then he's not open to learning. I'm wasting my time. I'll leave him till he's ready to come. I'll leave him till he's ready to change his mind that, actually, do you know what? Yeah, I've got to learn stuff here. I'm not where I need to be. So I kind of, attitude is kind of how I've worked on it. But you're right, most cases we do some testing, so we look at physical and we look at them playing football. We don't look at the other stuff. This is, like I said, the more detailed scout watches a player 4 or 5 times. He looks at how he deals with losing a game, and so he is ticking that side corner. He looks at how he deals with winning, and he gets more information. Unfortunately, that doesn't happen when it's from grassroots. That happens when it's academy to academy. But Cat 3, you really do have to rely a lot on students to come in and help. As I was, obviously, I had a couple of brilliant ones with Alex and Jake when they were delivering the psych for me and helping me develop the psych program. We had nutrition delivered numerous occasions by college students. The best one by a mile was a couple of girls who came in, and basically they started the session with, right, lads, we're going to infuse some drinks. So I brought all these fruits, we got all this water, and we got these cups. Get yourself a cup, pick whatever fruit you want, and they put the fruits in the cups, they put the water in, and then they went into more of the chat and talking about the various different nutrients they need and all the rest of it, and then brought them back to taste their drinks at the end of the session. And I think because they were interacting with doing, and because they made those drinks, that was probably the best nutrition session I ever saw delivered at Oldham in the 4 years. But yeah, Cat 3, you've got to be creative at times, and yes, use students, yes, use time. But we had boxing involved with our guys, with the but a lot of those programs were EPPP prerequisites. There was stuff that we were supposed to do anyway. The tour, I took the 12s on to Stevenage, where we had the team meetings again. Very much, lads, this is a tournament. It's about winning it. It's up to you how we play it. Here's some plans. Give me some ideas how you want to go about it. And we had team meetings, and they absolutely loved it. You just got to be a bit more creative with your time. But I think for me, and what will stay with me, and it probably falls more in the side corner than any other, is you've got to give your players ownership. That's why I introduced the flip session, as you know. The flip session, basically, the session of the structure remains. There must be ball mastery, there must be 1v1s, there must be some passing involved before going into a game based around. And in the flip session, the kids decided what went in those boxes. The kids filled them. They decided the session, and it might be because I feel I need to work on, I feel we need to work on, or we really enjoyed doing that one, so let's do it again. The biggest issue with that one was obviously, like I said, the coaches reneging control of their sessions.
Yeah.
That's a fantastic insight. I mean, like I'm taking on here. I'm just trying to summarise a little bit. Building trust with your players, really important as a coach.
100%.
Giving them autonomy, ownership, and actually planning to do that, which I think is important from a coach perspective. And understanding needs in the moment. So the example you gave, I thought fantastic, was when they're making that transition to high school, and you've said, actually, let's sack this session a little bit. Let's have a chat. You're trying to understand their needs and give them what they need in that moment. I think that's really important.
Yeah, like I say, it's them and their journey. You know, I think we're going far too much into this coach identity. What's your identity? What's your playing philosophy? What's your game model? Well, what if your game model Messi doesn't fit into it? You're losing that player. If you're a development coach and your game model or your game philosophy doesn't include having Lionel Messi going and doing what he wants, where he wants, how he wants, then are we losing that player from the game? Because you're supposed to be developing individuals, not a team. So why would you have a game model as an academy coach? You know, why is your coaching identity important? Your coaching identity shouldn't be more important than the player's identity and what that player is going to become. Is he going to become a hard-nosed, dogged defender who loves winning challenges, loves shouting at all his teammates and dragging them on? If I think about my 11s, I got a picture of him up there. Lucas Warburton. Wow. He wasn't the best player on the pitch. He was one of the smallest players on the pitch. But when he was on the pitch, everybody else on the pitch was 10% better. How do you fit him into your game model? You probably some academy, but I in all honesty, I don't think another academy's picked Lucas up yet because they haven't seen what I saw.
Again, that's the social corner, isn't it? We had this conversation the other day. How many kids slip through the net because you're maybe looking at the wrong thing?
You know, if you're about your coaching identity, your style of play, your game model, you're discounting maybe 50% of players, maybe even more.
Yeah, you know, so boy comes first.
Yeah, the player has to be the first and most important thing. What's that player going to become, and how do you help that player get to where they need to be? How do you improve that player? And that for me, that is development coaching in a nutshell. And you know, you need to use every tool in your armory. The biggest one is probably listening. The side corner is probably one of the biggest from the coaching point of view, because if you don't listen and understand and offer up that scaffolding for them to be able to fail, then they're not going to try the new technique and become technically better. You know, and if they're not technically good enough, then the tactics are out the window, because if you can't hit a 70-yard ball, then there's no point setting you a centre half and asking you to play diagonals. You know, you're restricting all the time if you're going to your philosophy, your game model, your coaching identity. It's about them.
Yeah, I think that's a good point to finish up. Unless you've got any other questions, Tom?
No, fantastic. Just listening to you there, Dave, is brilliant to hear your approach and philosophy to developing young players, and I think some really good insights for coaches, and there is for Sykes as well. So yeah, thanks for giving up your time there. It's brilliant.
No, not a problem at all.
Thanks, Dave.
You're welcome.
I'll press stop, shall I?
Okay, yeah, great stuff there, Dave. Gold dust.
Not a problem. As you know, James, I'm all about sharing.